name is Dan Hollison. I'm a journalism professor here at Marshall University. In the 10 years I've been here, I've had the privilege and honor of doing lots of video stories about some of the people I've met and places I've been. A decade seems like as good a time as any to take a look back at some of those stories.
I've met some interesting people along the way, that's for sure. Jim Shafer was 71 years old when I met him and had been making brooms for more than 50 years. The secret he had found was in the straw.
Each one of those has, where the seed comes always thrashed off of it, leaves a little whisker or a short bristle. And those little fine bristles are what sweeps good.
Will there ever come a point when Jim will say that's the final straw, it's time to quit? That's doubtful. Even though Jim is 71 and has seen sweeping changes in 54 years, he says he's still reaping the rewards of a working life and has no intention of retiring.
Well, I don't work hard because of needing it. Necessity is just a habit that I've formed through the life, and I enjoy that part of it.
Jim Shafer realizes others have gotten richer and not worked as hard as he has. Others have better retirement plans. But still he can't help thinking that when it comes to careers, he's the one who's cleaned up.
I joked doll maker Sybil Edwards was the oldest person in Milton, West Virginia still making babies. She didn't mind. She was more than proud to show off her creations.
Come on into my playhouse. I do a lot of playing in the garage, but this is what it turns out to be. This is my little people. And if you want to get up in a real bad mood in the morning, well, come into this little room and look at all these little faces. You're going to improve your attitude right off. Things are going to look up.
Living proof that making babies keeps you young.
Seems like I did a lot of stories about folks still working hard even after they thought they had retired. I enjoyed the day I spent watching Jim Davis make glass marbles.
I've had people say that, well, we'll make 100 a limited edition. They'll have this 100 a limited edition, and then I say, well, I can't make 100. I can't make two alike. I've got a limited edition with each one.
Jim is 70 years old, and at that age, when people start to ask his secret to a long life, Jim has an answer, and it's no secret.
I like to do what I'm doing, and I believe that I wouldn't have been around here maybe today if I hadn't had something like this to do.
One of my favorite stories involved a man who had retired to a life of making music.
Harold Burns likes to relax in his Yawkey, West Virginia living room, likes to listen to Itzhak Perlman, likes to read the Bible with his wife by his side. Harold believes the Bible, so when it says make a joyful noise, he makes it. Yes, Harold plays the fiddle, but he also makes a joyful noise from scratch. Harold has made about 35 fiddles in this little shop next to his house. This is number 36. These days, he only makes about one a year, and each one takes about 500 hours to complete. What does he think of when spending those hours alone?
Most usually I'm thinking of being very careful. I'll tell you why I have ruined. I can show you some pieces that I spent hundreds of dollars on and ruined them. And so I've got to be very careful.
Harold says he's read just about everything he can about making fiddles, but he also listens. He listens to the wood. The key he's discovered is getting just the right amount of difference in the tone between the top and the bottom parts.
I have that down to an F sharp, which is pretty close to what I want. See, and I want it between a semitone and the whole tone on the top. And that's the secret of having a better sound. Stradivarius violins have been taken apart, and I discovered that on his violins.
Harold is 76 years old and mostly retired. He's partly a Church of Christ minister, and this is his hobby. The fiddles he makes while fiddling around, he only on occasion sells.
If I was making a living at this, I'd been bankrupt a long time ago. I sell them for a little bit more than what it cost me to make them. I've repaired a lot of fiddles, never charged anybody a dime for my labor. All I ever charged was material that it cost to make them.
So next to the canned vegetables, next to the hummingbirds, Harold Burns makes his joyful noise for next to nothing. Well, maybe for something.
But it's a big thrill to me to make one, string it up, be the first one to draw a bow across those strings and see how good it sounds.
Old man and music are a great combination. Fred Miller was a member of Huntington's Harmonica Club. 80-year-old Fred Miller has been playing the harmonica for 70 years and has been with the club from its early days. He says he can't read a note of music, but if you ask him, he'll sure play for a spell. And if you're lucky, he might even sing a bar or two.
When life has ended, my time has run out. I'll lose and my loved ones, I'll leave, there's no doubt. But there's one thing for certain, when it comes my time, I'll leave this old world with a satisfied mind.
Satisfied with a simple instrument and the companionship of friends.
Pretty nice song when somebody can sing.
Doing these stories, I've learned quite a bit along the way, too. Like this fact from rocker maker Fred Fryer.
West Virginia is smack dab in the world's finest hardwood forest. We have deep mountains. So the trees grow down in the valley, and they reach for the sun. And when they reach for the sun, they grow very, very tall and very, very straight.
Artists, I discovered, come in all shapes and sizes, and even species. This room full of tubs and tubes may not look like a cool, clear West Virginia mountain stream to you, but to a caddisfly, it's almost heaven. To answer your first question, this is a caddisfly.
He's trying to scare us away.
When he matures, trout will probably know him better as lunch. Now, as for your second question, you might guess that the only reason someone would go to this much trouble for a bug involves money, and you'd be right. But in this case, it also involves equal parts art and fashion.
For the first time ever, somebody has taken an animal and allowed it to participate in creating art in a fashion that's not harmful to the animal, and it's great for the fashion world.
The caddisfly is like a butterfly in that it builds a temporary cocoon-like home for itself. But because the caddisfly lives in the water for this stage of its life, it builds the cocoon or case out of tiny rocks found in the stream bed. But common, ordinary rocks aren't particularly fashionable, nor do they sell well. So to make the artist's palette more palatable, Ben and Kathy Stout experimented with getting the caddisflies to build their cases with colored, more valuable rocks.
Here we have rubies, diamonds, and some gold nuggets.
It took 6 tries, but eventually the miniature Michelangelos worked with the precious and semi-precious stones to create cocoons of color. When the caddisflies emerge and fly away, the Stouts use the left-behind tubes to make necklaces, bracelets, earrings, and pins.
5 or 10% of the population will come up to you and say, ooh, that's gross. Another 5 or 10% of the population comes in and says, you know, that's the neatest thing I've ever seen in my life. What a creative, imaginative idea.
So for now, these caddisflies live the good life. Protected from weather, protected from predators, protected from the mundane, bland, and uninspired existence of their kin in nature. These caddisflies are artists. Steve Conlon called himself the bee-man of BB. We didn't quarrel over the title. I thought he earned it.
So this is fresh comb honey that's just come in from the field. And this honey is from thistle, the thistle plant, which is considered by many to be a noxious weed. But beekeepers love all kinds of different plants, and this is one that produces a nice, light, delicate honey.
The buzz around Thistledew Farm these days, though, is that the owner's good sense has betrayed him. How else might you explain this behavior? Why, it's enough to give most people hives.
You know, part of what makes the bee beard interesting is the fact that it is potentially dangerous. If it wasn't, they'd keep on walking.
And his wife, Ellie? Ellie is a willing participant in these bee beard demonstrations. It must be one of the compromises you make when you're the bee man's honey.
Very good.
If you think Steve was crazy, what do you think of Rick Griffith?
Rick Griffith has carved out a niche for himself as the Pumpkin Man. His house in Canova, West Virginia, shines with 2,624 jack-o'-lanterns this year.
It brings the entire community together, and it brings people outside our community to see that this is a great place to live, and West Virginia is a fun place to be.
What started with a few pumpkins for his daughters in 1978 has grown into this spectacle, which now takes about 100 volunteers to create and attracts perhaps 10,000 visitors to Canova.
I think this is the most unusual and the most surprisingly wonderful experience to come and see somebody's imagination come to life. It's just incredible. I'm so taken with it. What a wonderful thing.
We just carved one at the house, and it's I couldn't imagine the time it takes to do something like this. That's what he does it for the people to see is great. You know, all the time volunteers, to do it's wonderful.
The lantern part of the jack-o'-lanterns comes from Christmas bulb lights. The electricity needed to power this display has caused Griffith to have his house rewired. But it still requires lots of extension cords and lots of help, and who knows how many watts of power it takes to make this show a go. But it might be more accurate to say it's the children who provide the watts. As in, what is that?
Small children get excited and run from pumpkin to pumpkin, holding their parent or grandparent's hand and identifying simple objects like a fork or a spoon or whatever we carve, and it just makes all of us enjoy it so much.
Actually, that's the best part about it is watching the kids' faces when they look, because the adults look at the whole front yard as a whole and like how big everything is. The kids look at each individual pumpkin and it's like, it's the coolest thing they've ever seen.
Oh, it's like Madison.
No!
Let's face facts. Coming up with 2,500 different designs of faces would be nearly impossible. So Griffith uses lots of shapes. Pumpkins of schools and pumpkins of tools. Pumpkins up high and pumpkins of pie. Pumpkins of folks and pumpkins of jokes. All of these pumpkins, and not one of them is intended to be scary. That's because Griffith is a religious man who prefers to focus on the day after Halloween, All Saints' Day, the day when Christians recognize the long line of believers who came before.
Especially since in this last year I've lost my mother and my uncle, two of the people I loved most in life. It's a neat time because they inspired me to be this way more than anyone else in my life. It's a neat time to just be reminded of how much joy they gave me and how much fun it is to share that joy with others.
So Rick Griffith's yard is full of noise, his street is full of cars, and his friends are full of joy. He has fulfilled a lesson learned from his mother. Because his light glows for all to see, he has made the world a better place.
Giving back to the community was also a theme for the Nances. I watched as they led an effort to rebuild an historic barn. John and Karen Nance dance, clogging to music while two-stepping back in time. The barn in which they are dancing has a history. Strange, because the barn in which they are dancing has just been built. The Nances are officers in the Mady Carroll House Preservation Society. They are overseeing the construction, or more accurately, the reconstruction of a barn in back of the Carroll House. The project started only a few months ago, but it's being built on the same site and in the same dimensions as a barn originally built more than a century and a half ago.
Man, this is unbelievable.
The first phase of construction is actually a workshop led by Mac McRaven. McRaven is from Charlottesville, Virginia. He's recognized as one of the nation's foremost experts in historic reconstructions.
They didn't use this as a square when they were laying stuff out.
It's a very interesting, very intriguing pursuit, and the craftsmanship plus the history are an irresistible combination for me. It's always good to put something back the way it was 170 years ago in this case. That links us to history and lets us relate a little bit more to the people who were here before us who made us what we are today.
Oh, is that beautiful?
Bridge Day has to be one of my favorite events to cover. How could it not be with such great video? From leaping to landing only takes a minute or two. The best and most daring can make it in under 30 seconds.
Oh, that's late.
That's how long it took this guy. But for most, it's not about the speed. It's about the rush.
You hear the angel voice at your back. Oh! It's so good, man.
Look good, buddy.
It's awesome.
Yes!
Freaking incredible.
If anything, this view is even more frightening. The tiny specks just falling for 3 or 4 seconds. To hear the jumpers explain why they do it, you simultaneously wonder why anyone would and why everyone doesn't.
It's the most awesome thing you could ever fathom. Every feeling you feel in the world is simply intensified by 100%.
When you go over that edge, man, it's like going over the edge of the roller coaster. The butterflies come up into your throat.
So the visuals were incredible because you go off, just throw your head back, and all of a sudden you just see steel going by you. Steel, 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 and river and trees, and it's like, whoa! Get it out, it's all good.
Most of the 400 or so jumpers try to deposit themselves on the bank of the new river, but it's hard. And it's rocky. And sometimes jumpers are injured, landing where they want, just not how. Some prefer the softer, if wetter, option.
You dry faster than you heal is what we say around here. So landing in the water is okay, a little cold, but not bad at all.
Still, landing can be unpredictable, so the few spectators lucky enough to have a seat on the rocks have to keep their eyes to the skies and their for a show that leaves the jumpers floating on air.
How was it?
Long after they land on the ground.
I am so proud of you.
Bridge Day jumpers aren't the only ones attracted to fall in West Virginia. A whole lot of folks from a whole lot of places come to take photographs of Babcock State Park. Harold's from Connecticut. Shirley's from Virginia. Donald calls Pennsylvania home. No matter where they and the other photographers come from, they are here now with a single focus. They want to take their shot at getting that all-time great shot.
What I'm trying to do is I'm trying to beat the bright sunshine because the soft light, it works better. And I'm slowing the light down by using polarizer and a neutral density filter to get a really nice soft flow to the water.
It's a morning shot, early morning. Come here at sunrise, and as the sun comes up over the trees, it lights up the trees over the mill. Then you get the reflection in the water.
What really makes the shot is not only the buildings, but the waterfall in front of you. You got the waterfall leading right to the building, and you got some red color in the trees. Really makes for a beautiful photograph.
With so many photographers around, some feel the need to exercise a little extra effort to make their photos less like everyone else's. Perhaps going for that perfect shot that will be published in a magazine or entered into a contest. But of the hundreds of photos we saw being taken, most will settle for simply being enjoyed.
Pretty much the only shot I came down here for. You know, it's like a 7-hour drive for me. And to me, it was worth every minute of the trip, so.
And it's really nice to take back to work and show other people. They love it. The look on their face, oh, can I have one of those? Yes, yes you can.
In our 3 falls of visiting Babcock State Park, we saw crowds drawn to the changing of the seasons, but we found irony. No matter the year, the scene remained always picture perfect.
Yeah, I'm quite proud.
The photographers were the ones who changed. They left with a photographic memory.
That's beautiful.
The serenity of a state park shares very little with the sights and sounds of a high school wrestling tournament.
You gotta ride him out!
Just because it's a one-on-one competition on the mat doesn't mean wrestling's not a team effort. In the audience, family and friends are there for support, though some can barely stand and watch. And coaches? Well, coaches are always within shouting distance.
Take the foot around! Take the foot around! Walk around! Walk it! Walk it! Switch the cradle!
Encouragement, get them to go 4 out. They're dead tired. 6 minutes continuous, they're tired. And they're flat out tired. So you push and you prod and you pull.
Hip over! On the inside leg! Across! There you go! You're there! Hips up, hips up, hips up!
And you also, when you see an opening on something, point out as quick as you can so they can take advantage of the mistake. You know, some guy makes a mistake, shoulders down, heads up, heads down, whatever. make them pay for the mistake. So if you see them make a mistake, try to get them back in good position.
Athletes and athletic events sure make for great videos. In my first year here 10 years ago, I was lucky enough to be on the sidelines for one of the best football moments in Marshall history.
Let the record show it's 3rd down. 7 seconds remain. Marshall trails by 3 points. The game, the season, is on the line. This line. And the moment has arrived. Lifetimes are made up of moments, but most of them pass quickly and quietly. But when a moment comes along like this one, we will remember it and celebrate it forever.
It was the best game I've ever been a part of.
So will Chad Pennington.
One of the more difficult stories I've done involved mountain bikers. The story wasn't difficult because of the topic or the people. Rather, it was a lot of walking with a camera on the side of a mountain. Matt Fisher's career as a bicycle racer is going downhill. Fast.
Get it!
The faster, the better.
It's, I don't know, calculated craziness maybe.
Downhill mountain bike racing is a rough and tumble sport with an extra emphasis on the tumble.
A body in motion stays in motion.
Good job. 4 paces forward.
That's where physics comes in.
You don't want to look at what you don't want to hit, and you just sort of look at your line and keep riding, keep momentum up and keep going.
This course on Snowshoe Mountain will take racers down 1,500 feet in elevation in about 2.5 miles. Along the way, they will jump over rocks, slide around corners, and bounce over roots.
You just got to be just totally focused on, where you're going, trying to stay in control.
We basically turn our brains off. In fact, if you start thinking too much, that's when you'll fall off your bike or make a mistake.
And it's a great feeling because you're not thinking of anything. You're not thinking of bills. You're not thinking, oh, you got to go to the dentist on Wednesday, or I have to go to work, and it's just this.
Even with gravity working for them, these riders say going downhill is still a workout.
Most people think that going downhill, you just coast down the hill, but it is actually a really tough upper body workout.
You just have to keep breathing, and that'll keep your arms from pumping up too much and just keep you focused better.
That's beautiful.
On this morning, the fog in the valley makes for a picturesque view.
I think I'm just going to hang out and enjoy the scenery.
But a more challenging ride. The course is muddy, and that means an emphasis on the fundamentals.
Mud makes it real difficult. Mud makes all the rocks really slippery.
Imagine just dumping a bunch of warm peanut butter on the floor and then putting it over rocks and roots and riding on it. That's what it's like.
But the mud also means the crashes are less likely to break the bones than they are to bruise the ego. Despite the dangers and expenses, these bikers say racing downhill has its rewards.
It's beautiful out here, be out here in the wilderness and nature and stuff, so it is really beautiful.
It was a little easier to cover another event that involved going downhill fast. The Soapbox Derby is a physics lesson. You see, it's all about gravity. Gravity propels these non-motorized vehicles to speeds in excess of 30 miles an hour. And how else can you explain the way the young and the young in spirit are attracted to this pursuit of simply going faster than the other guy? It must be gravity. And the physics lesson takes place at tracks all over West Virginia, including this track in South Charleston. My favorite thing to do as a storyteller is to combine great video with great sound and then do my best to stay out of the way. That's what I try to do with my latest video. At the Vandalia Gathering, the only grass that matters is blue.
They need no new skinner. How I do the mud fly. Ha ha.
Well, it's the only true American music, and we're just trying to hang on to a piece of Americana.
It's such a fun type of music.
Got a good story, got a lot of good truth in it.
It gives you a good feeling and lifts you up.
At the annual cultural festival, groups form on the fly. On this day, strangers are just people you haven't picked with yet.
Try our best to grab a cord and hold on. Bluegrass is, you know, fast, and you get worn out and hot, and there's jamming and all the different great sounding instruments and so many talented people. Or I won't be your man at all. Let me be your salted dog. Ooh, yeah.
Great job. I love that.
I was standing by my window.
Retired Minister Mark Hunter is one of those who came to the state capitol grounds without a group, but he wasn't about to fret.
Well, you come expecting to play music, but you don't know who you're going to play music with. When you're playing an instrument, if you're playing with a group, you never hear many mistakes, and you can smile through most of them.
The dozens of impromptu groups and thousands of spur-of-the-moment fans naturally gather in pockets of 100 or so, because in the heat of this early summer day, the best music is made in the shade.
And the beauty of it is it's all acoustic. You don't need any electric. You don't need no PA system. You know, so you can just kind of just drop down and play wherever you feel like it.
You know, I really love doing this and being out here.
Walking up and down, walking to the silent hall. I lose my mind before I'm.
You know, it relieves the stress. It gives you a good feeling, you know.
I lose my mind before I'm.
We sing the same type of music, and we harmonize together good.
But I traded all the spinning for all the gold that's in her hand. I can see her standing by the window. There's nothing sadder in the world than to see those green eyes all red from crying on my blue ridge mountain girl.
The gathering is a unique reunion bringing together family. Family connected not really by blood, but by the music that runs through their veins. There you have it, 10 years whittled down to a half an hour. It was fun meeting all those people, and I feel fortunate they let me tell their stories. So much fun, I want to do it another 10 years. Thanks for watching.